Time to move on to our next session. And the next session is a session where Swamini Brahmaprajnananda is going to be in conversation with three people. It's 3:30 in the morning in Brazil. It's 3:30 p.m. in Japan. And it's 6:30 a.m. in Scotland. So we have been a little unkind to Gangaji, 6:30 a.m. We have been, I think, reasonably kind to Medhaji because it's only been 3:30 p.m. in Japan. And before you all accuse us of being extremely cruel to Acharya Vishvanatha, he is not in Brazil, although it's 3:30 a.m. in Brazil. He is luckily for us, he is now visiting in India and he is in Rishikesh. So he's in very much our time zone. So let's start with him, Acharya Vishvanatha. Acharya Vishvanatha is a Grihastha and a traditional Vedanta teacher in Brazil. Before Acharya Vishvanatha completed his 3-year course in Coimbatore at the feet of Pujya Swami Dayananda Saraswatiji, he was an engineer and had a successful career as a financial market consultant. After completing his course, he now teaches Vedanta, Sanskrit, and mantras, both online and retreats in Brazil. Welcome, Acharya Vishvanatha. Our second panelist is Brahmacharini Medha Chaitanya. Medhaji completed her 3-year course in Anaikatti in 2013. Immediately, she started teaching Sanskrit grammar for the class. And she has since then been teaching Vedanta and Sanskrit in Japan. Medhaji, welcome. And our last but definitely not the least of our panelists is Gangaji. Gangaji met Pujya Swami Dayananda Saraswatiji in 1999 in India, and that changed her life quite dramatically. She studied Vedanta for 13 years in India and returned to Scotland in 2013. Ever since, she's been sharing this knowledge with various groups of people from her flat in Edinburgh. Welcome, Gangaji. And to have the conversation with them, Swamini Brahmaprajnananda.
So I'm really very moved to see all of you. So I'm going to take some time to recover. So there's a lot of love and respect for all my Guru Bhais and Guru Behns. And I'm going to pretend like I don't know you at all. And I'm going to ask questions around how all of you have been teaching Vedanta and across cultures, across boundaries. So, first of all, congratulations on completing 10 years of teaching Vedanta to people across the world. So, let's start with the question that you probably get asked a lot. So, what about Vedanta struck you so much that you committed your life to it? Maybe we can ask Mitika ji.
Okay, namaste. So happy to see all of you. So the first question, yeah. So first time I heard Vedanta, the teaching at the was Dayananda Ashram, Rishikesh. And before attending that class, I was actually in Rishikesh for 1 year and just spending time actually. And by that time, I had enough exposure to many classes or satsangs, and I was not really inclined to spirituality, to be honest. And also, I was finding all these lectures or satsangs quite how can I say? But I didn't see much, substance in it. Yeah, so, and when I came to Dayananda Ashram, actually, in a few months before, I had this, and I picked up some, enthusiasm about learning Sanskrit because, I was in Rishikesh, and I was exposed to some, Hindu culture, and Sanskrit is not, separated from that, and lots of prayers, and pujas and artis, and I was also learning music, and Sanskrit is a must. And I wanted to know the meaning of Sanskrit, and so that's how I started learning, self-learning Sanskrit grammar, and and then so I wanted to study a bit more, just a little bit more. And then people told me to go to Dayananda Ashram. And then luckily or unluckily, there's no Sanskrit class. Instead, there's a Upanishad class, just started, Mundaka Upanishad, taught by Aparokshananda Swamiji. And I just, okay, so this is the only choice I have. And then why don't I just attend? And then so I sat for 1 hour. And I, of course, didn't understand any part of Sanskrit. But so what they're teaching made sense to me for the first time in Rishikesh. Yeah. And then so then okay, so and then I just realized, so this is why I was born. So they are talking about myself, the meaning of myself. So they are not talking about me as a just Japanese or girl or how many years or whatever. And so they're talking about the Swarupa, the nature of I, which I knew I didn't know, yeah, but which I knew that I was really not that surface my body. I know I'm not my body or my nationality or my gender, but I don't know. I knew I don't know who I am, and then I should know, that also vaguely I knew, and then so they're answering all the questions with some making some sense. So then I found out, okay, so I have to pursue to know more clearly. So that's how I started.
Yeah, can we request Visvanatha to also add to this question? What was that moment, or to make a life commitment is quite something. So yeah, please share.
Well, it did not started as a life commitment. Actually, I was working in the stock market and having a lot of, a busy life. And at the same time, my company that time was very successful, but I was not seeing any meaning more than like surviving or earning more, doing more things. Then the senior managers, all the CEOs that I met, they were very disturbed people, and I saw that my life would become that, So I entered a sort of a crisis, looking for an answer, I did some prayers the way I knew how to do it, and the next day I woke up with an idea of studying yoga, and that was it. And then I met one very special person, Santosh, that was coming to Brazil. And this guy was a yoga teacher and also a Vedanta teacher. So I started studying Vedanta and started to make sense. And it was a process, it took me like 7 years, 8 years to end up in Coimbatore doing the course. And slowly it became, what my life was supposed to be, but since the beginning, it was very like captivating to the mind. All the questions I had, it was there in the text. So it hooked me.
Yeah, and I know Ganga had experimented with a lot of approaches, and then you eventually came to Vedanta. So please share.
Oh, namaste, everyone. It's wonderful to to be with you all. It's so interesting to hear what different backgrounds we come from, but when you arrive here, you're a mumukshu, whatever the background, whatever the dramas, the stories that have gone on. When I listened to these stories, I realized I'd been I'd been seriously looking for 25 years before I had the grace to come across Swamiji. And from the time I was 12, I was desperately looking for bigger answers. I could see that the suffering and the struggling and the injustice that I saw everywhere, both in my own life and in the world, weren't accounted for within the frames that I had. I became I was raised in a Christian background, and now I understand the bhakti devoted, directed towards Jesus, helped me to grow and kept me alive. The desperation, without that, I don't think I could have made it. So I first became a lawyer, looking for truth and justice, and naively within my culture thought that was where I would find it. Like Visvanatha, after a few years in that, I looked at the people who were at the top of the field and I realized I don't want to be like that. And that was what the aspiration was, to reach this level of success. So then I decided to be trained for the ministry, became a Christian minister, and I got a fellowship to study in New York, and I did psychiatry and religion. And while I was there, the AIDS epidemic erupted. So I worked in Harlem and the Bronx for a number of years with people with AIDS and saw the death of so many young people and children. And before that, working with very successful people. And I realized that this life was so fragile and could end any moment. And some of the most desperate people I saw were the people that were successful, so-called, in our world. It didn't matter what they'd achieved, what they'd accomplished, who they knew. They were facing the death of themselves, their child, or their partner. And nothing that they knew touched the situation. So I realized so many people don't think about this till they're in their deathbed. What is the point of this? It's like you come with nothing and you leave with none of the games that we play at here making any difference. So a number of other dramas. I mean, I needed a lot of crisis and catastrophe to drive me not to be able to hang on within the system. And then I went on a full-fledged search to India. And I was searching, I tried everything in the West, spiritualities, philosophies, alternative, modern Vedanta. And even in India for 3 years, I gave up everything in the West. I realized I have to find an answer or I just don't see the point. I'm looking until I find an answer. So 3 years in India, going to different monasteries, philosophies, teachers, and because there's as many dead ends in India, obviously, as there are here, and you don't know what you're looking for. So eventually, by grace, I ended up in Rishikesh, seeing Swamiji. I resisted because of modern Vedanta. I thought the mind was a trap and it would just take you around in a maze and you got lost forever. But I thought, out of curiosity, let me see this ashram teaching Vedanta. And when I saw and heard Swamiji, I realized there's something here so extraordinary. And I discovered that Vedanta has answers, fearlessly asserts answers, because they know they can account for anything that is brought up. And no longer being told to pray for faith and to just accept things quietly, to swallow things that made no sense. So in Vedanta, it's like finding the missing instruction manual for the human being, or the code that cracks the whole mystery. So once I found that, I had no question. The integrity and the clarity was what my whole life had been looking for. So no doubt. And I recognized it. I knew this is the only thing worth having. So.
Yeah, this is it, like Michael Jackson said, huh?
No competition.
Yeah. So while we're on the subject of, all of you having come to India, from different cultures, backgrounds, So perhaps Ganga, you could continue sharing about what was one challenge that you faced culturally and how you overcame it. And then we can request the others to share as well.
I put my foot in things so many times out of complete ignorance, because our cultures are so different around the world. And, you know, there's so many things that you take for granted in your own culture. You assume everybody else understands that. So things like, you know, putting books on the ground, stepping over books, pointing your feet towards a deity or a teacher, serving spoons facing the wrong direction. And it was it was very humbling. I longed to understand, because the Hindu culture is so rich with symbolism that helps prepare the mind. And even though you've learned a lot in other cultures, we don't use the same symbolic representations. Another thing was I felt it's such a disadvantage often not understanding the associations behind references that were made in classes, because we grew up without the stories and the traditional myth and the myths and things. And I went to Swami Vidyatmamanandaji one time saying, you know, I just feel I can't begin to understand what other people do because I don't know the stories that are being referred to and used in illustrations. And Swamiji said to me, actually, that can be an advantage because you know you don't know. So you're available to hear the way it's being presented and take the meaning that's intended when you ask for further information, whereas people who've grown up with these associations may just check out because they assume they know what's being talked about. So it can be a mixed blessing, you know, in some ways you've a lot to learn, and in other ways it can actually be an advantage if you have the humility to acknowledge, I don't know, I'm the beginner here, and I bow at your feet to have the opportunity to see more. Yeah.
Vichika, Medha.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, as I said, you know, before coming to Dayananda Ashram, I was in India for 1 year, and then, you know, since then, you know, until I, you know, came back to Japan, and I was always in India, and so, but you know, so I was quite, and Rishikesh is a very religious place. And so to me, the cultural difference is not a challenge at all. Actually, you know, the culture, the whole culture, any small thing or like, you know, and in Rishikesh, you know, there are many kind of people, and you know, so people around me, you know, before even after coming to the ashram, you know, there are different, you know, different type of people, not only, you know, sadhus, but also, you know, people who works for shops and all these people. But you know, so they are, you know, Indian people, and they, you know, give me some advices like you know, oh, you know, so you don't want to touch, you know, like a you know, like a Gita book while taking chai, you know. So if you take chai and then you take chai and then, you know, and then you wash your feet and you know, hands and the mouth, and then you can come back, you know, or even like small things, you know. So you want to take a bath, you know, first in the morning, and you know, this kind of, you know, very basic thing, or any small thing, and so they can, you know, kind of give me advice, and then so that everything helped me ending up, you know, in the ashram and also continuing to study. And so I'm so thankful, you know, to everyone who, you know, taught me, you know, any small or big anything, you know, about the culture. And I can really say, you know, this whole culture, you know, first look, it doesn't, you know, show, you know, it doesn't look, you know, any connection between what they say in the, you know, Vedanta. But anyway, somehow, and also it, you know, not push me and but guided me towards, you know, Vedanta and also understanding of Vedanta. So you know, So this is something, yeah, you have to come to India and then see, and then communicate and interact with Indian people, any kind of Indian people. Yeah, so that's how I found.
Yes, from the land of Rio and Sao Paulo to Coimbatore and Rishikesh, Vishwanath.
Mm. In my case, there were two things that were challenging. One was food, because such a different taste, spices, and everything. Although I love Indian food, still the body has, its own swarupa. Like I was not born on this culture, no? So uh, adjusting to that was very difficult. And also, like I have my own problems with food myself, So I had like my own problems and the cultural problem. So it was a big challenge for me. Another point also was um, like the way Brazilians behave, in groups and all that. They are very outgoing, they laugh a lot and all that. And it took me a long time to understand that I was not unqualified, because looking at all other people that have different behavior, many times I thought there was something wrong with me. So it took me a long time to understand that it's a different expression of joy, of culture, and everything.
In teaching for 10 years now, maybe we can ask Vishwanatha this. So there is a rich culture and tradition that you belong to, in the context of the Brazilian Amazonian culture. And so while teaching Vedanta, what might be the cultural practices of your own sort of indigenous tradition that you have found very helpful to then bring into the teaching of Vedanta with your students?
That's a very nice question, because I did not have like access to the Amazonian tradition before Vedanta. Actually, all the Swamis, let's say, they are not called Swamis, but all the Swamis and teachers from the Amazon, they only open their doors for me because I was in the Vedic path, and seeing my work and all that. Then they decided that, well, you are a Brazilian guy, you should know our culture. So then I come to know, and they don't have Atma Jnanam there, but they have very strong tantric and karma yoga practices, that I've been following. Many things when I speak to people from India, they get like, oh my God, really, there is that? Yes. So like we spend, for example, without food, water, or anything, 4 days, isolated in the mountains, in the forest, in the caves. Many also Aushadam they have, like soma to drink, churnam that you put in your nose, things to drop on your eyes, and all these things they help in opening like the emotional body of a person, and also in this karma-oriented view, like of how to unblock, a person's life. So suddenly I saw that there was a rich culture in my doorstep that I did not have access. So this also is what I have been doing after I came back, like to know more and to get acquaintance with all that. And I see that for the Brazilian students that are interested in Vedanta, they can benefit a lot, like of having this practice and helping them to open up, basically to give them some adhikari for the Vedanta teaching.
Lovely. Can we ask Medha to share?
Okay, so yeah, so when I teach, in Japan, and so Japanese culture, so we have like a Buddhism and Shintoism. So these are the two main religions we have, but both are kind of, not kind of, very strong, like how do I say, in the foundation from India, Yeah, and then so this can be an advantage and also can be disadvantage because we have our own idea of what. But still, we Japanese are not very heavily indoctrinated with any like a theology or any idea of what the God should be or what this should be, and so we're quite open and neutral. So this is a very big advantage. And also we are, quite open for, praying, setting up altar and praying, and also, see in everything, like some, sanctity, some, like we are more like a spirit oriented people, but and everything has its own like a spirit or so consciousness, and then so setting up altar and praying is not a big thing for us. We can easily adapt. So after teaching 10 years to Japanese people, and then also today I was teaching Japanese people online today, and I was talking about what the questions I have to answer, and I was asking any cultural challenge people are feeling, and then nobody really feel so other than personal thing, we don't find really cultural difficulties or challenge, and yeah, and then but yeah, but having Shintoism and the Buddhist like a basis is quite so very close to in Indian culture. Yeah, so in terms of prayers and so seeing God in everything is not very big challenge for us, thanks to our culture. So yeah, yeah, so this is how. Yeah.
Ganga.
Well, I mean, all that I have seen the need for in this culture, as a result of the culture, is the pace that everyone is living at, the stress, the relentless bombardment with stimuli, and what is flourishing here, the religious approaches that are flourishing are really contemplative and just dropping everything, getting away from. That's not true. There's a lot of very active things too. But what I am drawing on from what I've seen is leading to having some silence at the beginning of each class and at the end of each class, and having occasional silent retreats so that we just have the teaching and the meditation and satsang, and the students are in silence for either a weekend or a week. Because I mean, I so much appreciate the opportunity we had in India, where we were in a protected environment in terms of what was being reinforced was this way of looking at things with no distractions unless you wanted them. So to create an environment like that where people can actively step, leaving the shoes outside, leave the stress and the preoccupations, have 5-minute transition, and be in the class, and then 5 minutes to go back out. And with the longer intensives, just a chance for people to refresh in every way. I see the need for that in this culture, because Vedanta requires a level of subtlety, of availability. And I think because I did so much emotional work and running around with things before I came to this, I want the people that are coming here have generally done a lot of that or are doing it elsewhere. So when they come here, this helps them shift gear to be available to hear the teachings.
Yeah, which nicely segues into the question of the cultural background, of course, is there for the student. So in your interactions with different students, is it the universal human problem, or there are cultural issues because of which there might be resistance to the teaching. And then the corollary is also that what do you find works in addition to shravanam? Like in the context of the emotional work that you referred to, what have you found that students might benefit from? And by answering this question, I think all of you will also give a lot of tips to the ones who are listening, who can look at these areas of work that require attention. Yeah. So maybe Ganga, you can speak, and then the others can. Yeah.
Maybe someone else can go first. My mind's not quite right.
Yeah. So the kind of emotional work that's required, right, to help to assimilate the knowledge better. Any of you? Yeah, Visvanatha. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, if you don't mind, I would like to add a curiosity from the last question, because in the Amazon culture, there are so many things that are similar to the Vedic culture, like Bija mantras, they have like their own Samaveda, such like, some words like from medicines like Sananga and other things, they are the same words they use in the Ayurvedic treatments, So anyways, just I want to share that, So answering this question to the main focus, of course, is Atmajnanam and the whole process that we learn, But what I saw is that people, they have a need to speak about their immediate problems they have, And that's also why maybe I connect so much with Brazilian students, but not so well with students from other countries, because the struggle that the society goes through is a little bit different, So in Brazil, we have some things like relationship is a very big topic, and the idea that the person needs to express themselves, that they have to put boundaries. And so all these topics help them to see that there is a problem, like a fundamental problem going on behind, But you touch like let's say the samsara the person is going on through these topics that are more like active on the society, And I found also that the need of in Brazil, the need of a cultural, how we say, um, like a cultural value for themselves is very important, because we have been colonized by many different countries, Portugal, Holland, all these people were there, and all the native people were killed. So in the end, all the spiritual paths that are there, they are not from the country. They are always from outside. So whenever Brazilian is like taking a spiritual path, he feels it's not his own path. That's always also why I'm like bringing up the native people from the Amazon and all that, because this gives a sense of belonging, to them, and then showing that this path is not different from that path. And there are some things that you can receive from this one, but there are other things that are not available here anymore. We had to get outside, seeing like all the spiritual paths as one path. This is like mainly the other subjects that I talk about.
Yeah, Medha.
Yes, and so other than Shravana, so I think in when teaching in Japan, more than Shravana, I put more stress on prayers, 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 prayers. And then so I'm so happy to go places to teach first prayers, before Vedanta prayers. And then when teaching prayers, Vedanta comes naturally. Yeah, and then so when teaching prayers, in the first you have to make sankalpa, and making sankalpa, and then in that context, so purushartha nishchaya comes, what do you really want, and what are you praying to, whom you are praying to, Bhagavan comes. And and also, yeah, we Japanese, so we need, extra punya, so Indian people, so you were born in Punya Bhumi, yeah, but we Japanese somehow, so fill the gap by prayers, whatever you say, prayers, and without prayers, nothing happens. And even after reaching, finding Vedanta, still, to keep on going, you need prayers, physically, in the form of whatever, puja or, observing Ekadashi. And, I really insist, at least in the morning, just secure time, even 1 minute, after taking bath, before, taking breakfast, and there's a prayer. And then, yeah, and then, yeah, and then, making, every day, to make sure, to make it clear what your, sankalpa is. And then, so, and then also you always pray for everyone, Sarve Bhavantu Sukinaha. And yeah, so this, and then prayer really, walks with you, and brings you. And then, so that's what I really always, put stress on prayers. Yeah.
So beautiful. Gaga?
I've come to recognize, I mean, what is said in the Vedas, the importance of shraddha, that without that, I guess based on my own experience, that's what makes you stick around, regardless of the experiences going on. I see that the Western world has created the most enticing packaging. I mean, packaging is our forte. And we've spread that all over the world now. So everyone's going for the externals, the packaging, which is very attractive and alluring. I mean, so much is spent on marketing to us because we're so susceptible to the packaging. And I mean, the beauty of Vedanta is that it cuts through all the packaging and accounts for all the packaging. And, the packaging sells itself and tells you what you'll get out of having it and what you miss out on if you don't have it. And to keep up with everything, you have to have more attractive packaging than anyone else, whatever level you're looking at. So, I mean, the importance of nurturing the shraddha, that no matter what the experience is and the packaging that you're encountering, remembering that what you're looking for is the content. And most of the time, the Western packaging has very little, if any, solid content in it. But, you're encouraged to move so fast that all you're looking at is the exquisite packaging. And unfortunately, that's being marketed everywhere. And it's like Rajas and Tamas. And that is loud. So unless you have see the reason for tuning into something else, you won't. So Shraddha, I believe, is what helps you to keep coming back to, what do I really want? And can this beautiful packaging possibly fulfill that? So, this Shraddha, this trust, remembering that, reminding yourself of what you're looking for, and can the other things possibly come up with that. So yeah, Shraddha is what I consider to be the most important thing, along with shravanam. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so just a moment of flashback. When you all decided to come to India and actually spend 3 years, at least at that time, I'm assuming you all were considered crazy, but perhaps you could share what your friends and family thought about this decision. And now, having returned to your respective countries and teaching, how the same friends and family now interact with you. So maybe we can ask Visvanatha and then Medha and then Ganga. Yeah.
Well, my family, they really did not support me plainly at all, you know. They would have a respect for what I choose, and they they wish that I can like obtain what I was wanting to, but at the same time, it was like this: if you are taking this decision, you should take care of yourself because you have a good life here. We did everything we could for you, and you are choosing to a spiritual path. So we are not going to support you. I'm not going to visit you. I'm not going to do anything. But when I broke my leg with the wild boar, my father came. You know, it was a little bit like this. They wanted also to make sure that I was doing the decision from deep of the heart. You know, so like that. And the friends, you know, um, I did not have many friends, but those friends, they were like wishing me the best, but at the same time they had a feeling that I was not coming back, you know, like he died, you know, and and actually I also felt like this, you know, I did not know if I was going to come back from India after all. Um, but when I came back, you know, the friends came back and they were like very happy and we connected back. And the family also, they got like very positive, but this turn point was when they saw that people were being benefited. Like when my father, my mother saw that people were studying and was helping their lives, then they got very happy, you know, and then they start to support me, you know.
Okay, me. So actually, I have never told my family or friends that I'm going to study Vedanta anything. And, yeah, and so when I came to India, even before I was always outside Japan, outside home, I said Japan, and it's it's not a new thing at all. And also I was away from home and doing something they don't know. And yeah, so I didn't have to get any permission or like declare anything to anybody, and I was just living my life, and then yeah, so they never stopped me, of course, and also actually when I came to India and came to Rishikesh, I thought I was going to spend a week or two only, and I was prepared to come back to Japan and find a new job. But this, somehow, Rishikesh caught me, and I really like the atmosphere. And then so I just canceled my return ticket. And then so I told my mom, called, international call, and then so, told her, so I'm not going to come back for some time. And then she was like, "Why are you calling me just for that?" Like, so nobody's expecting you anyways. And so you have time and the money, so so enjoy. And then okay, and then so yeah, my family is quite open, and then now they know kind of what I'm doing, and then they respect for they respect that, and yeah, and then so yeah, I'm kind of getting support for what I'm doing, so I yeah. And even though I'm not clearly telling, what Vedanta is and all this thing, to them, but they know what I'm doing, and so yeah, I'm quite lucky. Yeah, so I got the freedom, and yeah, so this is how, in my case.
Well, my poor family never accepted or came to terms with any of this. But I'd been going away, from the time I left law, I'd let my family down. They had hopes for my professional and career development that would bring me material success and then pride and status because of that. So I'd been going off the string for some time. So I'd headed off on a one-way ticket around the world looking for answers when I reached India, and my journey kind of stopped in India once I found what I was looking for. But when I returned after the course, because within Christianity, you know, there's one truth. And here was I, having found that and having been a teacher of it, leaving it. My mother thought I was a Hindu missionary. You know, if you weren't following the true faith, then you had to, you know, you've gone to the other side and you must be trying to spread that. And she couldn't see beyond that, unfortunately. But because of India, I ended up caring for her in the last 10 years of her life, because I learned in India about the importance of respect for the parents, and especially the mother. I would never have played that role in her life without India, but unfortunately she wasn't able to understand or appreciate that. So I was unable to share any of the joy and the wisdom and the gratitude for what I'd received directly with my family, but they got the benefit. My mother got the benefit of it. And friends I'd left behind a long time ago, because I've just changed so much and find new friends wherever I am. And now I don't really have friends because I'm just not interested in the things, apart from the one or two I connect with. Yes, in this tradition, that's what I would call friends. But in terms of the people I grew up with and the people around me, we don't have much to meet around other than hello and how's the weather. Yeah.
Yeah, very beautifully said, and thank you for that sharing. You know, they say for fish that are in the water seems very normal for them. And for Indians and Hindus living in this culture, this is what we grow up with. And I find that a lot of Hindus take this culture for granted. Is there any input that you could share in how Hindus need to maybe open up their eyes a little more wider, or how might Hindus themselves look at one's own culture and the rich, glorious tradition of Vedanta? Any inputs that any of you want to share? I know this is a bit controversial to ask you. You want to be able to say the right things, but you know, feel free. We're just chatting. Nobody's watching.
So I was thinking about that. There is two things that I think it could help, you know. One is just sharing something that I know you already know, but it's important to say, you know, like the outside the our parampara, people that are studying, I'm talking about Indians, you know, most of them that have any contact with Sanskrit, any contact with, you know, prayers and all that, they believe they know Vedanta, you know. It's very amazing. Like I talk to them, it's a Sanskrit teacher, let's suppose, you know, and he thinks he knows Vedanta because he's able to read. So there is not an understanding that I don't know, you know. And without this understanding that there is something else to be learned that is not the literal text that is there is no way Vedanta can work, you know. So this is one point I was thinking about. And there is also another thing. I think that is a, a, a concept of vairagya and a concept of what is the pursuit for moksha, you know, that is in the wrong place, you know. So what happened is that people establish that this study is something to happen when I'm on the end of my life, or something to happen when I'm wanting to give up everything that I have, because I think people fear that if Vedanta comes, I will lose my life, you know. And actually, it's just the opposite. No? Vedanta comes to make life better, and Vairagya is supposed to be something natural. So what really happens is, in many cases that I see, is that the person has an emotional problem and he's not able to address it. And then it hides behind Vairagya and all these concepts, you know. So this is just some ideas to think about. Yeah.
Shall I speak? Yeah, and yeah, so I always want the Indian people to be more proud of your own culture, and so unique, and so everything is connected to Vedanta. But you have to study, but at least you have to keep that culture going, without putting down. And so we really respect, not only respect, we need it. So I always encourage Japanese people to come to India, not only coming to India, to see people who are religious, Hindu religious, how they accept prasadam, how they, give prayers. And so that's how we can learn only way to learn, karma yoga, how to, arupana, and how to receive prasadam. You have to see, because we don't have prasadam in our culture. And how do I talk about prasada buddhi, And then so then we need, living Indian people who are, so showing, so embodiment of, what is bhakti, what is recognition of, Bhagavan, and this is one thing. And also, so these days when you see like SNS, social media, and so some, like people try to proud of themselves. And I mean, I'm talking about the Indian people, and then, so, we have to proud. But, I always want to say, but, I don't say, but I always want to say, study Sanskrit, so without knowing, Sanskrit represents, not only the language, but also the culture, scripture you have to study, so they just say like, like a Veda is scientific, so that kind of, thing that, like to talk, yeah, but, so if you want to promote, I don't want to say Hindu, whatever, Hinduism, whatever, Vedic culture, and so without studying, how can you promote? And then so go to the right place, like Visvanatha says, and then so, yeah, so study, so just, not only just making the noise, but also, so really study, yeah, and yeah, so I really feel like, first study some scripture, and then and the language is there, and so pay more, respect the time, or like study Sanskrit first, so that's I always want to say, but I keep myself quiet.
So glad that you said. In fact, they can refer to your books. You're such a scholar in Sanskrit. Wonderful.
I'm trying to help. Yes.
Yeah, Ganga?
Yeah, I what both of you have said is I agree with, and I wanted to say having no friends here is not any sad thing. I mean, connected with Vishwanathanji saying, with Vairagyam, it sounds like a very sad thing. You lose things, but you don't need these things anymore. You have what you were looking for. That's the beauty. You're not feeling something's wrong with you if you don't have lots of friends, and if they're there, fine. If they're not, fine. But yeah, what's been said, India, I mean, Indians should have such, it sounds like a contradiction, but the rest of the world, those of us who have discovered the real treasure of what your culture has, have just such gratitude to you for having somehow managed to keep this extraordinary wisdom alive, despite all the invasions, the colonization, the horrors. There's been the environment there, there's been the culture to maintain this wisdom that you now share so freely. This is the beauty. I mean, I'm attempting to do this here, and it's not very easy sharing freely because it's dismissed as not worth anything if you're not putting a price tag on it. But the fact that your culture shared this with us, I mean, we're foreign, we didn't speak Sanskrit, we're certainly not Brahmins, we're like lower than the dogs, and yet this was offered so freely. I mean, it just, whether you can afford it or not, no matter who you think you are, what your educational background is. I mean, there's such profound lessons to be learned by just appreciating this, you know, and all this, the values that you're taught, which go against the values that are the world is selling now. Manitwam, be proud, sell yourself, you know, tell people how wonderful you are. But the real things that are worth anything don't have to be marketed. You know, that's what I found in India, a quality of wisdom, a quality of compassion and humility in the people that had the most. They didn't need people to know they had it. They weren't selling it, but they would freely offer it to those that recognized and wanted it. So you have so much to be proud of. Please never forget that. And, you know, even if you do have to go running after other things, remember that one day your own heritage has everything you're looking for whenever you're ready for it. Just so much gratitude.
Speaking of generosity and wisdom and compassion, our beloved Guru, Pujya Swamiji, so any particular interaction that, see, that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I was thinking over it, but you know, it's too much. But, yeah, and then so personal, and then you know, so yeah, and also, you know, without getting emotional, and it's difficult. And you know, and yeah, and also, you know, very small ones, the big ones, yeah, yeah. But you know, yeah.
So perhaps a teaching, you know, maybe if not a personal interaction, maybe some teaching that like really struck you.
But I don't know. I always take it so, you know, personally. Yeah, and I don't know, but you know, I was interacting with Pujya Swamiji, you know, since in Rishikesh. Yeah, so and then so I could say, you know, he was always, you know, taking personal, you know, care of me and what I should do, you know. So he was great, you know. He was planning, you know, and then so he knew more than, you know, I know about me, you know. So yeah, but yeah, yeah. Well, I give it to, you know, 12 years.
I can't put my finger on one particular thing, but what I saw was Swamiji's complete presence with whoever he was with. And in the very beginning, when we met him, he spent hours. We didn't know how lucky we were at that time, but spent hours asking endless questions, and the same questions over and over and over. And he would never hold against you that you hadn't done what he'd suggested you do. He'd never ask you, how did anything work out? You know, he was always getting you wherever you were, however you got there. From, you know, the cleaner to the president of the country, he was exactly the same with everybody. It was just never humiliating anyone or putting anyone down. Just so much love and affirming love without sentimentality. You know, just his way of being was as much of a teaching as the words that came from his mouth. Such a blessing to have been able to be around him. And it took me, I said, being at the feet at one point, it took me years to be able to bow to anybody. That went so against the programming and training from this culture. But to have the privilege of being able to surrender and bow at the feet of such a Mahatma was just, and there was no pressure, there was no change in the way of anything depending on what you did or didn't do. Just such a blessing. Swamini, do you have a particular memory? It looks like you're very, very moved. It would be lovely to hear any something from you.
I'm still melting, so we'll have to reserve it for another time.
All right.
Yeah, let me just check with Visvanatha if he wants to share something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a memory, but something that inspired me a lot, like during the whole process, is like my understanding of Seva, came through like his way of being, you know. So until the end, until like the last moment, he was so much giving himself to everybody, and this was something that really like profoundly touched my heart, to understand, the nature of what is our humanhood, is about. So that was very touching for me. Yeah.
Yeah, very beautiful. And thank you. We've almost crossed time. And it's been so inspiring and fascinating to hear all of you speak uh, in different countries, different cultures. But you know what unites us, of course, is our love for Shastra, our love for Pujya Swamiji. And really speaking, we are one. We're just having fun interacting with each other and in this drama called life. So a virtual hug to all of you. Namaste to all of you. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Acharya Vishvanatha ji, Medha ji, and Ganga ji, for giving us 1 hour of your time from various parts of the world. And once we hear you, all of you talking, and one of the questions Swamini asked was, do you have any message to give to, what is your message to Indians who are steeped in this culture and stuff like that? When she asked you the question, I had only one quick repartee that came to my head, and that was "Ghar ki murgi dal barabar." I'm not going to translate it, but some of you might know what it means. But it's a way of saying that what you have already, you tend to take for granted. So maybe a lot of us do suffer from that we have it, we own it, therefore we take it for granted. So thank you so much for coming, spending so much time, and spreading Swamiji's knowledge in countries as far away as Japan, Brazil, and Scotland. Thank you very much. Swami ji, would you like to join in thanking them?
Yeah, definitely. It was so wonderful to see all four of you discussing this. Number one, all of you, I'm including the fourth one also, the moderator, come from so many different cultures, so many different backgrounds. One thing comes right across is your search for meaning. What brought you to Vedanta? And the fact that you're teaching in so many different cultures proves a point that Vedanta can work for the human being irrespective of the culture. And as an older sannyasi who took this up full time from 1976 onwards, okay, full time, I am so happy to see that the parampara is moving forward so well across the globe. And I should say thank you to all of you for that. We are all Guru Bhais. At the same time, as an older man, I feel like saying that it's so nice to see the parampara going forward.